Good morning, afternoon, or evening, and welcome to another episode of The Adventure Science. So, the topic of today, creatine. This is actually a video I thought I was going to skip, simply because I already made a short 2-minute video explaining a little bit about creatine. But there has been new research, somewhat calling creatine useless. Maybe not in those exact words, but pretty similar wording. And I'm not going to be discussing that research paper today. However, if you are curious, there is a really good video explaining it by Dr. Mike Israel. I'll link below. Let's carry on. Let's get started. So, basic information. Creatine is a combination of 3 amino acids: arginine, glycine, and methionine. They're very common in red meats as well as seafood. And creatine is one of those supplements that is pretty popular amongst athletes for very good reason, though. Mostly due to its ability to aid in strength and power. One last thing I threw in at the end there that I really want you guys to know and understand: there is no such thing as a special form of creatine. Most studies that have been conducted on creatine monohydrate, and there has been no significant difference or even no noticeable difference between getting creatine HCl, creatine this, and that, new formula combined with XYZ. 99% of that is just cap. If you just have standard creatine monohydrate mixed with nothing else, you're gonna get the basic benefits you're looking for. Let's talk about how it acts. Before we can actually talk about what creatine does, we need to understand what is ATP. ATP is the primary energy carrier in the human body. It is responsible for most reactions that require some form of energy. Maybe not all, but the vast majority. Creatine restores the ATP in your body. Essentially, what happens is when you use ATP, it goes from ATP to ADP, adenosine triphosphate to adenosine diphosphate. So high energy to low energy. Essentially, creatine is stored in your body, more specifically within your muscles, in the form of phosphocreatine. The phosphocreatine, as you can tell, phos, the P, not F or whatever, PH, blah, blah, blah. That portion of the creatine molecule gets donated to the ADP to reform ATP. So essentially, when you supplement creatine, you're allowing your body to convert more ADP into ATP, either at a higher rate or to a more significant degree than what would have been obtained naturally. Now we got that out of the way, what are the benefits? By increasing the amount of ATP molecules that are available in your body, you're able to increase your potential for strength and power. An increase in strength is defined as increasing the amount of force that can be exerted, whereas an increase in power is either increasing the force or an increase in the velocity. Power incorporates speed and or velocity. That's the key difference between force and power. It's pretty logical to assume from there that when you increase the amount of strength or power that you're able to exert, you will therefore increase the amount of muscle you're able to put on, or lean muscle mass, whatever term you prefer. Creatine is especially beneficial for such cases. That's why it's so popular amongst bodybuilders, powerlifters, etc. End of the day, more muscle you have, more power, more strength. Big, heavy circles go up and down, and then bigger, heavy circles go up and down. It's able to do this because it increases the amount of IGF that is in your body. IGF is essentially a product of growth hormone. So, IGF in young people is essentially responsible for most of the physical and mental developments that are going on. And in the case of adults or anyone that is out of puberty and adolescence, etc., they typically see better anabolic abilities, or they're more able to add on muscle when you increase the amount of IGF levels. An increase in IGF has been linked to a direct increase in stuff like testosterone. Kind of makes sense why you're able to add on more lean muscle mass at the end of the day. Okay, so the mental benefits that we're going to discuss have been seen and have been noted in and out of research. Like, it is confirmed that the mental benefits are there. However, these mental benefits are mostly noticeable within those that lack creatine to begin with. So, not to say these are the only people that benefit from it, but it's more noticeable in groups like vegetarians, vegans, and older people. By older people, I mean closer towards being your grandmother, grandfather, etc. So, some of the mental benefits that have been noted is that creatine lessens the severity of mental fatigue as well as mental exhaustion, typically seen in those that are sleep deprived or they're experiencing mental exhaustion as a byproduct of physical exhaustion. For example, I don't think there's ever been a time somebody's competing in a sport, putting out all of their energy, and afterwards they think to themselves, you know what would be really good right now? I don't want to relax. Instead, I want to do some calculus equations for the next 3 hours. Dosage and timing. When we speak about the dosage of stuff like creatine, there's typically a loading phase that is advised for most people between 20 to 25 grams. I'm here to tell you that it's not necessary. It is beneficial, don't get me wrong, but it's not completely necessary. Reason why I feel like I want to point this out is one of the noticeable things that seems to occur with a lot of people that take creatine is after a certain point they start to get stomach cramps, they feel dehydrated, or the water weight is getting to them mentally. More on that later. If you're one of those people, or if you're concerned about taking in too much creatine, you are able to go without a loading phase. You can simply just take the recommended 5 grams for about 4 weeks, and then you'll reach full saturation inside of your body or inside of your cells. Now that we've got that out of the way, I do want to talk about the daily dosage after your loading phase. The daily dosage after your loading phase has typically been recommended as a minimum of 2 to 3 grams and typically 5 grams for the average Joe. Here to say, I totally disagree with that. I read some papers from last year and a couple of years before that talking about the various levels that may be considered as optimal or beneficial. Even within my own experience, that 5 grams is typically not the most optimal amount that everybody could take. I mean, think about it. Does it really make sense for a short, skinny person to take the same amount of creatine as a tall 300-pound behemoth? No, that doesn't make sense. How are we both taking the same creatine and same levels and seeing the exact amounts or the exact same amount of benefits? Really doesn't make sense. From what I've seen online through various research papers and also from my own experience, when you take your body weight in kilograms, not pounds, we use metric on this channel. When you take your weight in kilograms and divide it by 10, that is typically a beneficial amount or an optimal amount. As for the timing, there is no particular timing that you need to worry about when it comes to creatine. You just need to make sure you take it every day. If you miss a day, not the worst thing ever, so long as you're consistent. Warnings. So, quite a few people seem to be concerned about the effects of creatine on their kidneys. If you do not already have a pre existing medical condition related to your kidneys, then you do not need to worry about it. As for the stomach pain and discomfort, that is typically seen when you take higher doses than what is optimal for you. But if you do experience it, consider lowering your dosage or skipping the loading phase if you are in the loading phase and just sticking to 5 grams a day until you saturate, or the more optimal, your body weight divided by 10. There also seems to be about 30% of people that are non responders to creatine. Since recent research has come out saying that most people are not taking optimal dosage, they could be taking more. Since that research has come out, that 30% of non responders may be inaccurate. It could actually be far less. Because think about it logically. If most people were not taking the optimal amounts of creatine for them, it kind of makes sense that you wouldn't see the benefits of creatine or you wouldn't experience them. Like, as for the next item on the list, water weight, it's something that so many people worry about. Like, I'm going to put on so much weight and I'm going to hold on to so much water and it's going to mess up my physique. If it really was that bad, why would bodybuilders be taking creatine? Think about it logically. If it's adding so much water, why would a bodybuilder take creatine then? It's really not that much. However, if you are somebody that competes in a sport where it's weight sensitive, basically meaning there's only so much weight you can weigh before you have to enter the next class or the next grouping for your sport, then you may consider cycling off or stopping your intake of creatine either a week or two before the competition. Okay, for the last item on the list, they have been concerned about aerobic capacity. Like if you're somebody that does running or you are there cycling, etc., and you're worried about your weight increasing and thereby slowing you down by half a millisecond, because it's really that important how fast you are in the sport that you're competing in. This has been confidently, what do you call it, disproven by recent research, saying that there is no significant difference. However, as much as recent research has stated that if you as an individual or as an athlete, I should say, can notice a difference that is hurting your performance, I would recommend that you stop or you discontinue the use. Let's get to the summary portion of this. Essentially, creatine is there to restore ATP within your body. By restoring ATP, it's able to increase strength, power, and lean muscle mass. Strength and power is increased because the more ATP you have at your disposal, the more energy you are able to output, or the more force you're able to output slash exert. And in terms of lean muscle mass, that is getting increased because of the increase in your IGF levels, as well as the total volume that's being lifted, etc. Next, the mental benefits, they are there, they have been proven. However, a vast majority of people that do see mental benefits are those that are already lacking creatine more than the average Joe, i.e., your vegetarians, your vegans, or the elderly. Not to say that the average Joe wouldn't see any benefits. However, it's going to take much more to see those benefits. I think there was a research study completed last year, or I should say, posted last year, talking about this, and I think it was as much as 20 grams was needed to actually see a significant difference in mental cognition. So if you really do care about seeing these mental benefits for yourself, then you can go ahead and try that. I'll see if I can find the paper and share it with you guys, either by linking it below, posting the name on the screen, etc. Loading phase, not necessary at all. Loading phase is completely optional. Beneficial, but optional. If it's causing you discomfort, you can always reduce it or skip it. What I did personally was I tried the 20 grams for like 2 days, made my stomach hurt back to back, reduced it to 10 grams for the remainder of my loading phase, and I was able to load up on creatine faster than if I was taking 5 grams every day. Finally, for the 30% non responders, that percentage could be much lower if more research can be conducted at the optimal dosages that have been mentioned several times before this. Aside from that, got nothing more to say. That's the end of this episode, and I hope to see you guys again next week.